Roni here. I'm going to talk about more about my Godzilla vs. Kong Mexican bootleg. But before that, go watch my original 2 videos. You'll get more information there. So, the title is Godzilla and Kong Our Last Hope. If you've read the title of my first video, good job. You did an amazing job reading it and paying attention. Now, where does this take place? In Mexico, of course. This takes place in an estuary, a jungle, and a bridge thing. So yeah, this will take place in Mexico in the first issue, and the rest of the series will take place in Mexico. So don't expect for Kong to go into New York and got a little rampage for Japan. I'm sorry, but we're gonna be through Mexico here. Also, let's talk about designs for a little while. Process of how I designed Godzilla and Kong, and the art style of the characters. So if you're interested in this, you can stick around. So let's start with Kong. Kong was pretty easy. I mean, he's just a big gorilla, and Godzilla's way much more. And not only are they that, but also visually, yeah, you could tell Kong is just a giant gorilla, and Godzilla is just so much more. So I wanted to give Kong equal footing with Godzilla, design-wise. So I gave him the palette from Monster vs. version. I gave him a little more posture of that of orangutans and gorillas and even chimpanzees. So I took inspiration from chimpanzees and orangutans, but also sloths because they have the same color as Kong, and also I wanted to make it camouflage because I wanted to give him something that Godzilla doesn't. Also, I gave him a lion's beard, not only to make his beard a little less anthropomorphic, but also to make it a little more kingly in King Kong. Now, for Godzilla, this was fun, and also tedious. You see, Godzilla's been redesigned officially and unofficially so many times, and some designs work and some don't. So I wanted mine to work, but also be unique and what I like. So what I kept as a basis is making Godzilla a little more like dinosaur-like. So I took inspiration from Godzilla 2000, the original design, and the Heisei era design, which is my favorite. But also, I took some inspiration from my favorite design, the Godzilla vs. Griffin Godzilla, or as you would know it, the 1994 Godzilla by Stan Winston. Yeah, that guy made this one. Also, including Crush McQuarrie and my favorite artist, Ricardo Delgado, all 3 did an amazing job depicting the King of the Monsters. So I gave it a more of a darker color palette, like the original, but also gave it a larger head because Godzilla has smaller heads lately, especially 2014. That's one of the reasons why I didn't like the legendary design so much, also because it has small spines, no color, and its feet are way too stumpy. Over time, Legendary did fix the design, but it still, in my opinion, doesn't look like Godzilla. The spines, the feet kind of, but the head's still way too blocky. So I fixed that by making it a little more rounder and bigger. So I took inspiration from Post-Zucus, which you can see, and V-Rex. Now you're probably asking, why a V-Rex? You see, it's because V-Rex kind of looks like Godzilla if you squint it a little. Give it spikes, 4 fingers, make it whack upright, but boom, Godzilla. Now, also, this ties thematically because V-Rexes are Kong's enemy, so that in turn makes Godzilla Kong's enemy. And yes, V-Rexes are canon in this world. They're not going to be called V-Rexes because that would be copyrighted. So I'm going to name them something else, like the carnivores or something. Also, they're the same species of creature, just like snakes and lizards, how they're square mates, but they're 2 different things. Yeah, Godzilla and V-Rexes are closely related, but not too close. So yeah, Godzilla's kind of a species of V-Rex, and V-Rexes are kind of a species of Godzilla. Moving on. I changed the color palette, gave it spikes, and boom. So there's friends, done. Godzilla's ready for action. And the duo looks good together, complementing the design. Kong being the smaller one and Godzilla being the bigger one, the original dynamic that we had over centuries, Kong being the small one and Godzilla being the big one. I wanted to keep that, not only to make them different, but also make them stand out from one another. Also, they have an advantage. Godzilla has the advantage in durability, but Kong has the advantage in agility. Godzilla is also agile too, and Kong's also durable in this one. But that's the most notable features. Now, as I often mentioned, I was going to talk about the art style and the other characters. You see, I have Rodan, Mothra, and Anguirus. No matter how much I wanted to keep Anguirus, I feel like Rodan won, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's because he had a character arc in his first movie that I really liked. So I wanted to keep it in this comic, which will have its own issue, which might be the third issue. Also, well, let's talk about issues. I haven't fully checked yet, but I'm probably going to have about 5 to 8 issues in the comic. And that's what I'm going to say. Now let's talk about character dynamics. Taking a lot of backing from Godzilla vs. Kong as a main inspiration. So see, Godzilla was kind of acting up for no reason. The movie kind of explained it's because he's onto something, because he found Mechagodzilla, which is actually King Ghidorah's skull, and Kong is just there to help them get the stuff. When I mean by stuff, I mean the atomic energy to pulse and energize Mechagodzilla. Why do they fight? It's because they have an age-old rivalry. But I expanded upon it here because the Godzillas and the Kongs have been in war for centuries. And that's Kong's vendetta against Godzilla. Godzilla really knows nothing about this. It's just minding his own business. Kong, on the other hand, wants revenge for what Godzilla's species has done. But over time, they start putting the pieces together and figure out that it wasn't entirely the Godzilla that started the war, but another thing. Spoilers. So, I don't want to reveal what this thing is. But I'm going to tell you, it's going to be really cool. Godzilla is a little more like Dinobot in this issue. What I mean by that is that he's a berserker, he's bloodthirsty, always rushing in a battle, and always on the edge. Kong, on the hand, is a little more laid back, but he's also pretty untrusting towards Godzilla, kind of like Red Trap, but he's not pessimistic. He's just a little more like Optimus Primal, actually, where he's kind of more relaxed, but Kong actually strategizes. Godzilla just rushes into battle, but that's a strategy, and it always mostly works. But that's not to say Godzilla has a battle strategy. Godzilla's strategy is take them down one by one, and take down the biggest one in the yard, and you're done. And that concludes my Godzilla and Kong, Our Last Hope, news. I forgot to mention the original Godzilla design that I've made. So the first one's a little more closer to the original in posture, but I wanted to make it a little more dinosaur-like. So I based the design off dragons, Komodo dragons, and saltwater crocodiles. And the next design is a lot more dinosaur-like and incomplete because I didn't like it. The next one is so, but a lot smaller. That's all I wanted to say until I got better and got to where I am.